All right. Well, so this is our second conversation with Tracy Elmore and Amy Baldwin, STEM Educators of the Year in the state of South Carolina, and really just excited to have everyone joining and have the opportunity to talk with them about STEM, like what it looks like in their classroom, what's their experiences in STEM, their experiences using Learning Blade, of course. This is a Learning Blade webinar, but also, just giving some tips and advice on what makes them awesome, because trust me, they're awesome. So let's just kick it off real quick with Sheila as well, if you want to introduce yourself, because it's awesome that Sheila's been able to join us. And then I'll let Sheila just sort of guide that conversation. I think that'll be great.
Okay, great. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Sheila Boynton, and I am the co-creator and the CEO of Learning Blade. And I'm just grateful to be with you guys this afternoon and, having a chance to hear from two amazing educators. I do refer to you both. I would have you know when I'm doing state level presentations, because I talk about Learning Blade was designed for any teacher to be able to use it. And that was our goal when we designed this. And really, we didn't design it for those teachers that were going to go home and build a NASA space shuttle model and come back to school with that. But I always say, we have teachers that know nothing about STEM using it. And the last two STEM teachers of the year of South Carolina are our biggest users in South Carolina. So, so for us, this is just a great piece to have you guys share a little bit about what you guys do with Learning Blade in your classroom, because I always say these two women have taken Learning Blade and put it on steroids, is what I kind of call it. So Tracy, I know we have talked before, and that you integrate Learning Blade with PTLW and all of that, and what you do as well. Tell us a little bit about when you first got Learning Blade, what kind of were the things that you utilized and thought were useful in your classroom?
When I first started, I was overwhelmed because there is a lot of good stuff that's in there. And to me, it helped me to look at my units that I did in my classroom and use the web. Is that what it's called, Josh?
Yeah, the mission diagrams. Yep.
Yeah.
Which I'll put in the chat box for everyone.
Okay, that helped me a lot because it breaks it down into smaller portions, activities and things. And so I could kind of pick and choose what met my needs and my students' needs. And that's how I kind of started out, because just to look at all of it at once was overwhelming for me. And so breaking it down like that was very helpful. And Josh was helpful with me to kind of lead me in that direction as we talked. So.
Yeah, how much did he pay you to say that in front of us?
Not a thing, not a thing.
Okay.
I just put the brochures in the chat box for people to see what Tracy's talking about.
The spider diagrams or whatever. Yeah. So I think, I think you did mention something that we have always talked about Learning Blade, because we've added things over the years to it. And I think the good thing about Learning Blade, there's a lot of stuff. The bad thing about Learning Blade, there's a lot of stuff. So you have to really kind of, weed through it to figure out what works for you. So for you, Amy, did you have a similar experience? What was your experience starting out?
Well, my experience starting out was I actually got sick, and my partner said, okay, we got Learning Blade, let's give it a try. So we picked a mission and we just kind of ran with it, and that came out really great for us. So that strategy has worked for our team. And it's kind of funny because before everybody signed on, Josh and I were talking, my school is actually virtual right now because of COVID. And then tomorrow, our district is virtual because of an ice storm. In South Carolina, it does not happen very often, yes, and especially in the low country. So it's great because I have Learning Blade to give to the students. So if I have a connectivity issue, or if I have a student who's sick right now, it's such a self-paced program that they can go in and pick up where they left off when they get their internet back, when they have those opportunities. So it's been a lifesaver right now with me being sick, to have that resource available, or they almost have a teacher because it's got interactive lessons, but I'm not there in person. So it's been a lifesaver for us. And that's how we used it last year. If anybody's school goes hybrid or goes virtual at times, it was our go-to for those opportunities, because no matter what your situation was, you could access the learning on your own, at your own time, at your own pace, which is a great thing in a STEM world.
Yeah,
And it works
really
for,
is.
it works if you have substitutes as well.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, definitely, I think that's, part of the intention is, using time for particularly like maybe someone that finishes early or moves in a different space, because education is sort of, it's the place that we keep doing the same things and expecting different results, number one. And number two, we expect every kid to move at the same pace when you got a classroom of 30 kids. And we all know every kid is different. So what grade levels are you guys teaching now, both of you? Amy, what grade
We
level?
both have, I believe we both have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. We use it with all 3 grade levels.
And what other classes do you teach?
Well, I currently just teach STEM, and so does Tracy. We're both Project Lead the Way teachers. However, if you taught math, you could easily incorporate these lessons in there for that real world connection. I believe, I'm trying to think which one it is. It might be the airplane unit that has the Pythagorean Theorem. So when we were doing the airplanes in the fall, my 7th graders hadn't gotten to the Pythagorean Theorem. So we walked through that lesson together. And then it's really interesting because this year when they're in 8th grade, they're like, hey, Miss Baldwin, when we learned about the Pythagorean Theorem, I remember that from Learning Blade. So they have that real world connection. It's also great for all of the science items, for all the science pieces and components. So if it wasn't being used in a STEM classroom, you could easily integrate it into a core curriculum. Most schools right now are focusing heavily on literacy and the vocabulary development for Learning Blade. Just listening to the words being read to you, since it will read, that vocabulary development has helped my students astronomically.
Yeah, that's so cool. How about you, Tracy?
I'm the same with Amy. Yes. We had one of our Project Lead the Way teachers was moved to a core classroom teaching social studies. And she was kind of upset about that, but you have to do what you're told to do. But she uses still some of this in her classroom. And it's good to communicate with your teachers within your school, because you don't want to do this one thing in my classroom and then they do it in a different classroom and then it's already done. So having that communication and that network with your colleagues is important when you're sharing this platform
Resource.
that we have.
Yeah.
Resource. I couldn't think of the word.
resource.
Sorry.
That's
Oh,
okay.
lots of different things. It's a lot of different things. Yeah. And I know Joshua mentioned there were, other states on here and I would love it if everyone just typed in like who they were, what school they're at, what state they're from, maybe what they teach. Because I think, in this Zoom world now, we've gotten like a little bit sort of, we don't always connect with everybody. And so it's great to just see who's on with us today. So if you guys don't mind, put your name and your state and what school you're at, maybe what you teach. It's just, it's nice to see the variety of people. I think also what you guys are talking about that can utilize Learning Blade, because we have math lessons, we have English lessons, we have social studies, we have, science as well. And so, we really designed this to be different. So I definitely see all these our favorite states here coming on, obviously South Carolina and Alabama and Arkansas, Florida too, just really grateful to work with you all. So I think, I was wondering, what I know this pandemic has, I always say our healthcare workers have been our heroes, but our educators have been our heroes as well. And so, I just wanted to understand, like, from your perspective, like, what do you see for the rest of the school year in terms of, and not just about Learning Blade, but just in general, for your students, like, how are they coping and how are you guys supporting your students and what do you need too? I mean, in this regard. So Amy, you're shaking your head. Yeah. What are you thinking?
Well, we kind of joke all the time, Tracy and I and Josh and others, every time we think we figure out what we're doing, then they throw another curveball at us. So, at this point in time, I'm hitting the ground running every way. But, we don't know. Our district last year, if there was COVID, we shut down for 2 weeks in January. Again, Learning Blade was my savior. We did some of the hands-on activities from home. This year, our parents said, you're not shutting the whole district down. So they're going school by school, classroom by classroom. So, I was smart when I kind of saw it coming. I knew our numbers at our school were getting high. And I was like, let's get the Learning Blade going so we can, at least be doing something interactive while they're home and collaborating while they're home. And, it's great to have the resource. Tracy's been lucky enough, our school district hasn't let us have the parent nights we want. But, if you wanted to do some parent outreach during this, again, you've got the Learning Blade has their parent resources that have hands-on activities and things. So I just like that there's opportunities and options. But I also like right now with the world changing the way it's changing, all these careers are changing, jobs are changing, things are shifting. I love that Learning Blade is exposing these kids to different careers. And though that not every student in my school has the pleasure of going through a Gateway to Technology class, I've been pairing with our guidance counselors. And if we have a student who has an interest in a field that there is a teammate for in Learning Blade, we're trying to set them up with that opportunity to go through that and learn more about it. So there's lots of opportunities out there. And I'm going to be honest with you, and I know Tracy will probably agree with this. One of my favorite things about Learning Blade right now is it's free, because budget cuts are left and right and up and down. And having that resource with all of the options that are in it, when I see things cutting back, because my principal's like, and I'm like, listen, we're golden. Everything's covered. And so I saw some curriculum coordinators from different states, and I know, Josh, you've got your map that has all the states that have already signed on, but if a state is questioning if they should sign on or not, I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's worth every opportunity that you're bringing to the students, because they're learning about careers that they didn't know about before. I mean, I'm learning about careers that I didn't know about before. I'm going through. So I think that's really helpful.
Definitely. How about you, Tracy? Like what are you seeing kids struggle with? What are you, needing yourself as well?
Had a rough week this week, I will tell you that. We have had to cancel our related arts classes to sub in core classes because we don't have enough teachers. So it's been kind of crazy. But I'm just with Amy on all of that. Learning Blade is like our golden child, like what she was saying, because it is easy, accessible. You have the backpack access to it. If they don't have internet, they can go on and download it. Like, we know we're not going to be in school tomorrow, so they could go on and download what they needed to if they have not enough internet, because they're not sure if they can. We usually do buses for internet around, but they're not sure if those buses are going to be able to get out.
Interesting.
So having those availabilities there is important, because we do have a lot of outlining students that don't have that access to that. So just like you said, just using it in our classrooms. I use it, when subs are gone sometime, or when I'm gone for a sub, especially one that I'm not familiar with, because they're hard to find right now. This is an easy thing for them. The students already know how to do that because you train them on it. They already, have access to it. They've done it in other classes. And so it's a good thing to use for that, as well as, like I do with, implementing it within my curriculum. So I don't see changing with Learning Blade at all. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to have parent night. They've canceled things now. So, we'll see what happens with all that, but I do enjoy having the parents. But yeah, the home aspect of it is important, because that brings those parents in and the other siblings that they have, about STEM, and just informing them.
Tracy, I remember seeing pictures of you and your students. You had them build like cardboard robots using recyclable materials at home. And did you connect that with the rescue robot mission?
Yes, I did. Yes,
So
I do.
Can you tell us a little bit about that lesson? Because it's super fun and nice at-home activity.
Well, we could not work in groups, could not be together. We had to be 6 feet apart. So I was looking in Learning Blade, trying to find something to do with them. And the newspaper, you write an article about a robot. And I thought, oh, well, they can create one. And so just out of trash, paper towel rolls, toilet paper rolls, cardboard, I mean, just whatever you can find, pipe cleaners. I had them to design a robot, any type of robot they wanted to, but they had to come up with what the purpose of the robot was. And could it move? Could it walk, roll? It did not have to, at this point in our curriculum there, it did not have to move on its own, but they could tell how it would move.
Yeah.
The students loved it. When we were closed down, we did this, and they did it at home, and some of those robots were magnificent. And then I did it within my classroom last year because we still couldn't work in groups. And the students love the activity, and then they love writing that newspaper article about their robot and what their robot can do and can't do. And they try to sell it, they try to market it and give it a prize. And they just, they enjoy that activity. That's a good one.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you're bringing up, Learning Blade isn't just like sort of read on the screen and answer the question, regurgitate. Really, we're encouraging, and I love hearing these stories about kids innovating and ideate, because that's what school's supposed to be about. We're going to teach them some foundational skills, but then we want them to be able to ideate and innovate themselves, and so that's what you're alluding to. Some of our other activities in our mission challenge projects are hands-on project-based learning. If you guys have not used those, I think what Tracy and Amy are talking about, the fact that, you can do this with limited materials in your classroom. That was our whole goal, not to make you have to go out and buy expensive. And I love Project Lead the Way, it's definitely a great thing. But like you said, not every kid can go through that. It's expensive, and there's a lot of expensive equipment. So you can do some, intermediate activities with Learning Blade for that. So I love, somebody put in ID8 for all. Okay, very cool. I'm not familiar with that, but I'll look it up now. I saw we had somebody from South Africa. So this is the first time you've ever been on an international webinar now. You guys can put on your resume now. International. Yeah. Oh, you just made that up. Well, hey, it's pretty cool. I like it. ID8 for all. We may see that somewhere down the line, John. I don't know. I'm an entrepreneur, so anything I hear, I get kind of enthused by that. I love it. So I was just, I think one of the things that is coming up now is, and I just want to give a shout out to Governor McMaster in South Carolina, who is actually the first person I met in South Carolina to talk about Learning Blade with. Sat with him at a conference, and one thing later, he introduced me to your superintendent, Molly, and we worked then with Angel Malone, who I think just left your CTE department, but she was the one that helped us put Learning Blade into space and really got it going for the state. And I think, that is one of those things that I like, is that, we do these statewide kind of efforts for, for states, which really, to your point, doesn't put a lot of encumbered work on the teachers or the schools or the superintendents to, to procure things. So now you guys all get to make your own decision on utilizing Learning Blade. And so, in fact, next week, the governor will be at the National Governors Association, and the National Governors Association Chairman's initiative this year is all about computer science for K-12. So Governor Asa Hutchinson of Arkansas, I think there's some Arkansas people on here, really leads the nation in this. And many other states obviously are doing some cool things. Are you guys, what are you seeing in terms of computer science education for middle school students right now? And then we'll talk about what we are, releasing as we speak. So I don't know, Tracy, you want to go first this time?
Well, I mean, computer science is STEM.
Yeah.
It's important for these students to know not just how to use a computer, but to know how it works and how it helps with their life, their daily
Yeah.
life. And, you know, to be producers through computer science for their world and not just consumers of just scrolling or looking, you know, I feel like that's very important for our students to see that.
Yeah, for sure. And Amy?
I agree. I mean, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina, so we're in the digital corridor down here. And, you know, these kids need to understand that if they, you know, want the good jobs, being a YouTuber isn't as important as being the person who codes and helps run the software that makes the YouTube work. So
Correct.
having those options, and again, that exposure is so important, especially in the middle school age. You know, I don't know if it's nationwide, but in South Carolina, when they're an 8th grader, they have to start picking their high school track.
Yep.
And exposing them to things like Learning Blade gives them the options to start narrowing down things that they want to do. You know, one thing I'm really passionate about is girls in STEM. And I have a lot of them that have gone through these activities and they're like, yep, that's confirmed. I want to be an epidemiologist. Or I had one the other day that she's like, all right, it's official. I'm going computer science next year. And I'm really excited because neither one of them is that what they thought they wanted to do when they walked in the door.
Love it.
So again, just exposure, showing them the different people, getting my 6th graders hooked. And I think I told this story on the last seminar, the little paper figurine people, my 6th graders, and they're so hilarious because the ones I just lost, we didn't, you know, we moved, we're in semester, we didn't finish them. They're already emailing me pictures of their little paper people sitting in their rooms so that they can continue their collection in 7th grade. But it's neat to me because that means that they're making that connection and they're thinking about the Learning Blade outside of my classroom, which I really enjoy that they're doing that. But again, it's, you know, like Tracy said, we've just got to start that early exposure. And if it's as something as, you know, easy as starting with a Learning Blade or running it into some of the other free coding software things that are available out there with like code.org and things, it's great because the more opportunities. I love programs and companies like code.org that have free coding platforms, but they don't talk about the job side of it necessarily. So having that connection and that tie-in, again, is changing people's impressions and showing them what options and opportunities are out there for them. I know these little people, I really thought, I was like, they're not going to love these things. Oh my God, they're the best things in the world. It's like their own little Minecraft village.
Yeah, that's what it was modeled after. It was Minecraft. My kids are
and they
grown,
love it.
so I don't know much about Minecraft, but all my younger employees have kids and they're like, Minecraft's the best thing ever. And obviously you're demonstrating that. And I think, you know, you mentioned something very near and dear to my heart, which are girls and women in STEM. And as one of only 2 girls in my chemical engineering undergrad program, back in the dark ages, you know, that has always been front and center for me because I think we know, you know, kids only can know what they see. So if they can't be something they can't see. And, you know, I'm an engineer because my dad was an engineer. I'm a good Indian daughter. I became an engineer. But, you know, I know that there's so much opportunity now. And I think you talked about, you know, just because you live in South Carolina doesn't mean you can't work for Google or Facebook. If we haven't learned anything else over this pandemic, we've certainly learned that. And so, you know, and the brain drain and, you know, moving people on. But I think, and, you know, of course, South Carolina is a leader too, because you are one of 3 states that are offering high school computer science class. It's required. So that's, you know, you kudos to that. 3 states, I think it's Nevada, Arkansas, and South Carolina. So you guys are definitely right up there in terms of that. To it. And I think, you know, having Learning Blade early helps kids see why they want, to your point. Like if they don't know what career they want, why would they take that computer science class, you know? So I think that's important. So I know obviously during the pandemic, it's kind of been wonky, but like after school, like, do you see that as a way in time for not only Learning Blade, but like, you know, what are kids doing after school, particularly in middle school? Where do they go? What do you see, you know, them having, I mean, it's just wondering, you know, my kids are grown now.
It's
So
all
I'm gonna
good.
have grandchildren one day. I just want to know, what do they do after school now?
YouTube.
Oh,
Like my almost 6th grader, I'm like, please get off of YouTube. sports YouTube, but now that but it's interesting because the other day he was in here playing with Tinkercad, trying to 3D model something. You know, he loves sitting, well, since we're both virtual right now, he'll sit in my class during lunch to see what they're working on, kind of things. But again, and I saw someone wrote in the chat, you know, it's all, you know, having that ability. You know, not everybody has access, having that equal access. So being able to expose people to things. When I see Josh has put on the screen and some people are like, well, I might not have a 3D printer. We were lucky enough, and I believe Tracy has one too. Last year we did so many Learning Blade lessons that they gave away 3D printers. And I'm gonna tell you, that little guy moves. He prints really fast. And our students had a great time. We're actually going to use our 3D printer in collaboration with our science class. They're gonna be designing aliens and then printing their little aliens through their 3D printer that live on their other different planets that we're working on. So we're really excited about that. And then, you know, of course, and I'm like, we're going to find all the stuff in Learning Blade. One of the kids the other day said, you're going to find all the teammates we haven't done in Learning Blade that have to do with this. And I said, yes, I am, because you need to know. But they know that because they know that they really want that information. Middle school kids, you know, they'll joke or laugh about something, but if they do, it really means they want to know. And they just don't want to, they don't want to look uncool by asking. So, you know, it's nice to have these resources and opportunities available for them because, you know, there's the jobs that some of these kids are going to have. I mean, the job my child's going to have probably doesn't exist yet.
Exactly.
You know, it really probably doesn't. I mean, he's fascinated by forensics. He's fascinated by coding. I can see him building like miniature virtual crime scenes and analyzing them through some tool that has never been invented yet, you know, virtually, because we don't have to go anywhere. So, you know, we have no idea. And it's great to have the kids have opportunities and to look at things no matter what their ability level is, no matter what their situation is, that they can. I mean, I use Learning Blade with my special needs students. I have to walk them through some of the math problems and things, but hearing the vocabulary, again, listening to the different stories. When my sixth grade, we do Dolphin Rescue. Best piece of advice Josh gave us was that was a good place to start with sixth grade. They want to do everything to rescue that poor little dolphin, to build his little prosthetic fin, his tail. They were so excited. They thought the penny balance lesson, if you're talking about balancing equations and doing different balances, and those were things I could do with my virtual students last year that, like you said, they had a ruler laying around, they had some pennies laying around. You know, we had great conversations about why some years of the pennies weighed different than others and threw off our data. But again, it's just having all those opportunities. And, you know, some people might look at this and be like, well, I got to get another training or whatever. This is the most user-friendly, easiest program to pick up, put a kid on, show them how to log in, and let them go. I mean, I have one 8th grader who said, do I get a prize? What did he say to me today? Do I get a prize if I finish every Learning Blade mission? And I said, I have no idea, but I'll ask them when I see them this afternoon.
I think we could arrange that because I don't think we've had that happen yet. So
no, I'm like, but if
the challenge is on. The first student in the United States that wins that, I will make sure we find something really spectacular for them because there's a lot of stuff in
that's why I said, I was like, but I don't know if you could get all of it done. But it was interesting that he asked that. So it was like cool. Wanting to push himself even further. And I'm like, sure, bud. You know, well, I don't know, but it's good. It's worth a try. It's cool to see.
Yeah. So, well, we'll be interested because just today we released our Intro to Coding new course for middle schools, 7th and 8th grader, a 20-hour coding kind of class that'll allow students to really experience coding a little bit differently than, and you mentioned code.org, love code.org and Hadi Partovi and that entire team. But you know, there's something between code.org and nothing. And I think this is what we're offering in that. So for middle school students to get an exposure and then really learning a little bit about actually how to go and doing some of the text-based coding. I think you guys mentioned it, you know, every job has some digital fluency or skills that are required. Doesn't mean every job you have to code, but the knowledge of coding and what it can do will help you. I think even if you work at McDonald's, you know, now they have those big screens and you got to do stuff with those. So I think, you know, all of the jobs that the kids will be exposed to are going to need that. So those of you that are on the call, if you haven't had a chance, next week we will be doing some training on that, and you'll get that as well.
I'm
So
gonna put the link. I'm gonna put the link.
Joshua.
I'm gonna-
I need to get off.
Okay.
I'm going to turn it over to Joshua, but thank you, Amy. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you to all the educators on for your amazing work, your amazing support of Learning Blade. We are very grateful and honored to be part of what you guys use to impact students. And we hope that we can continue to do that for a long, long time.
Thank you, Sheila. So, you know, I just want to make it clear to everyone, I think knowing Amy and Tracy